This is the Paclock 90A-PRO. We're going to go for our 200K club. I'm a bit late to this. I actually picked this lock for my blue belt quite a while ago. And I just never made a video for the 200K club. And I figured, why not knock that off my list? I haven't picked this in quite some time, so it'll be interesting coming back to it. There's my bitting. You can see I basically have a min lift right next to the highest lift that it can possibly have. That is a maximum adjacent cut specification cut on the key, and then a bunch of high lifts, which guarantees that every one of those security pins is getting used. This is a fun one to pick. So there is my code, A07490. So if you wanted to order this exact lock, you could order it on that code. Do note, if you were going to use it for actual security purposes, you probably wouldn't want to be sharing that code, but since I'm using it for picking fun, I figure why not share. So we'll go ahead, get this into the vise, and get started. The first thing you want to do, find a nice snug tensioner. In this case, I think 1.2 millimeter is going to be our best bet because it slides right in there and lets me apply tension. For the amount of tension I'm using, I tend to use pretty light tension, only as much as I need to bind pins, and I'll vary it as I go, but for the most part I'll be applying just a very light amount, and I might relax it as I push on a pin, but other than that I'm going to stay with a pretty light amount. Some people like to be a little heavier with moderate amounts of tension and very heavy amounts of tension. In this case, the less tension you use, the less pick pressure you need, and your tool will thank you. So for my tool, I just have a well-used Jimmy Long's 19 thousandths medium round hook. Even with that big bitting challenge, this'll get it done, no problem. We got a nice wide keyway, so we can navigate around pins as necessary. So let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and find the first pin and apply some pick pressure to it. And I can already tell it kind of shifted a little bit, and then it immediately feels spongy, which tells me I probably set it just touching it. So once it's spongy, we're moving on to the next pin. Pin 2. Pin 2 is binding hard. We're going to apply pick pressure. Got one little click, but still binding. More pressure. And getting a little bit of a counter rotation. There we go. Even serrated pins can counter rotate if the serrations are deep enough. It's still binding, so we're going to push more. And now it's spongy, so we are good. We're moving on to pin 3. Pin 3 is binding right away. We're going to apply some pick pressure, ease up on the tension, and immediately test it right away. And it's spongy, so we're set there. On to pin 4. Pin 4 is springy, so whenever you encounter a springy pin, it's not binding, it's not ready for picking, just move on. Pin 5, get underneath it. It is definitely binding. We're going to give it a push. And we got one click, and it is still binding. Got another good movement out of it, and it is now springy, so we're going to leave it alone. Move on to pin 6. Pin 6 gave me one little movement right when I touched it, and it is still binding a little bit, so we're going to push on it. And I think... Yep, we're still binding up as I lift that pin. So applying some pressure, letting off tension, and I just felt it go, and now we got springy. So even without any sound there, I can tell by how it feels, the fact that it got springy, that it did set. So do not always rely on sound when picking. So moving on to our 7th pin in the lock. It is binding. We're going to give it some pressure, relieve tension. It moved a little bit, but it is still bound, so we're going to keep pushing on it. And there we go. It's now springy, and I think the core moved a little bit, actually. There we go. There is still a little bit there. Just bouncing on it, I got it that last little bit, and I got a good core movement out of it, which tells me we probably hit a spool somewhere. So we're gonna go through, feel the pins again, and see how they feel. 1's still springy. 2 is still springy. 3 is springy. 4 is binding now. So 4 is probably our spool. So we're gonna go ahead and apply pressure, relieve tension, there's counter rotation, keep going, and it's open. So that goes to show you that This lock does take a little bit of time if you haven't been to it in a while. I did go quite slow, but slow and steady wins the race. If you want to get faster at picking things, you got to practice going slow first. It's better to know where your pick's at and what pin you're actually pushing and testing. That's the key to victory. When I was first picking this, I was far too aggressive with my movements, far too just trying to get through it as fast as possible. If you slow down, take time, test every pin state like you just saw me do, you'll get your open just as I did. So let's go ahead and take this lock apart and show everybody what's inside. So what I'm going to do is adjust my camera here, so excuse the bouncing while I get it set. Keep your lock in frame while you do any kind of fun, just so that people know it's the same lock you picked. I'm going to go ahead and turn that autofocus back on as well. Hopefully that doesn't bite us. Get some light in there. So get my tools out of the way. I kind of prepared what I believe is the correct tools for this lock. So for a padlock, there's usually a screw in there, a retaining screw. This is a 2mm Allen, which I tested on this one and it was correct, so it works here too. So we're going to go ahead and loosen it up. That's going to drop our protection plate out, as well as our core, once it's loose enough. So there is our protection plate and our core. With the Paclock, you'll also have 2 ball bearings in there, which should be loose now, so I'm going to go ahead and pour those out into my hand. You may have to wiggle this shackle a bit to get the other one. Let's just go ahead and set that one down. There's the other one. If you're curious what this does, when the lock is unlocked, this is a shackle retention. So you can actually remove this to remove the shackle. So I'll show you how that works. Why would you want to do that? Well, there's different shackle lengths and different shackle materials. So if you wanted your Paclock to have a brass shackle, as opposed to one of the stainless steel shackles, they do have those available. As well as various lengths to fit around different things. So the reason I'm holding the shackle is there is a shackle spring there. So out comes the shackle, and there is our shackle spring. So you can get a different shackle, change it out. That makes it, as well as all the core colors, allows you to really kind of customize your particular lock the way you'd want it to be. Try to get some of these other tools out of the way now. And let's get to gutting this core. So what you need to do with the core is, I would recommend locking it back up before you use it. Just because if I try to turn this and show you the key pins right now, that will expose this open end to the drivers, and the drivers are going to shoot themselves right into that core. So we're going to lock it back up and grab our key. And then just rotate it to show that there are 7 key pins. That's what the 200K challenge wants you to do. We're going to go a little further as if this was a blue belt and actually gut the lock. It'll show you guys as well what you need to do in order to gut a lock like this. So there's a retention on the back here. I'm just using a little removal tool to help me get this circlip off. Oh, and that's, of course, is springy as heck and went flying. Then the next step, in my opinion, should be to grab the key to minimize any issues you have, as well as allow you to turn it. So one of the things to watch, if I turn it this far and I start pushing it out, what's going to happen is those drivers are going to end up right in here, and it's going to cause a mess. So what you're going to actually want to do is probably go about here, or get yourself some sort of shim. I don't have shims readily on hand before the video, and I don't want to go digging for them now, so we're just going to do this very carefully. But for you, when you're doing your video, I would probably recommend just getting a shim on hand. So we're going to go ahead, slide this over, make sure our drivers end up over here, set that down, and there's our 7 key pins. So as you can see, that first one barely has to lift at all when the lock, when picking. So that guy basically, as soon as I touched it, set itself. Whereas all the other ones are very deep in that core. So we're gonna go ahead, dump these pins out one by one, grab our our tweezers here so that we can put them where they need to go. Pin 1, pin 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So there's all of those. So you can see that's quite a jump in bitting change here, and then really short key pins for the rest, which means that you have to lift them quite a bit, which means those security pins are getting a workout. So picking one of these is probably one of the more challenging ways you can pick a Paclock. However, it really is a good test of your picking skills. If you can pick one of these locks with any decent bitting, which pretty much all of them are well thought out bitting by Paclock, you're pretty much guaranteed to be able to pick nearly any other master lock, any lock like that you run into. You will have the skill set necessary. So to get those drivers out, what I'm going to do, grab my tweezers, we're going to move back slowly, get the tweezers in front, and that way when the pin comes out we can see pin 1 was a spool, but it never got to see any action because that pin basically didn't have to move at all. I'm going to dump all the springs at the end just because they sit in that cord and they're kind of a pain in the butt. Pin 2, we got serrations like we would have expected. Pin 3, try to get this on camera as best I can. It is a tiny core compared to what I'm used to working with, so pin 3, come on out. Pin 3 is a spool. And pin 4 is pretty deep in there, but you can see it is serrated. Now what I'm going to do, just push this all the way through, and we're going to gut pin 7. Pin 7 is just a long standard pin. That's bump protection basically. It makes it so that if you were to make a bump key and try to bump this lock, hopefully this one is moving at a different, will move slower than the other ones, and guarantee that at any given moment there's at least one driver pin at the shear line, making it a much more difficult lock to bump attack. Pin 6 here is a serrated. Pin 5, our last pin, is a spool. So you can see Paclock went spool serrated, spool serrated, spool serrated, and then that longer anti-bump pin at the very end here. So that's our driver pins. We'll go ahead and dump out the springs. We should just have 7 springs that are the same probably. Yep. If we did have one different spring, I would expect it to be on that bump protection pin, but that's not very common, so you don't see it very often. But there you have it. Those are our 7 springs. And our Paclock 90A-PRO. So more tips I can give you at this point are going to be related to the reassembly. So we'll actually do the reassembly on camera here too. I didn't flip all the serrations out, but they were serrated side towards the key pins. I only rotated one of them there. Sorry about that. So onto the reassembly process. To reassemble the core, since these springs are pretty short, I'm just going to drop each of them in there as we go. Makes life a lot easier. Make sure we get one spring in each slot. And rotate as needed, just to make my life easier. So just looking down there, making sure I got one spring in each slot, which I do. So one thing to watch out for during reassembly, there is a notch on one side. Like every American core, the A1100 for example, American 1100, there's a notch on the side where the plug goes in. So that is where pin 1 is. If you flip it around, you're gonna have your plug sticking out here. There's not gonna be this little recess. It's gonna be pushing into that locking plate. It's gonna require a huge amount of tension and key force to operate, if it even operates. So that is one thing to watch for that I see a lot of beginners get wrong. Make sure that you pay attention to where that notch is. So I'm gonna go ahead and get my follower, and we're gonna just start loading those driver pins in, starting at the very back. There's nothing super difficult about reassembly. At this point, it's basically just getting them in there and getting the follower moved into the next slot. And then making sure that, you know, your serrations are the correct way around. For example, I want my serrations to be oriented towards the key pins. I basically line them up over the spring, push it down with the tweezers, and then slide the follower in further. In this case, I got a little bit misaligned, so it's very hard to try to show this on camera as well because gravity is not my friend, but I kind of line it up in there, line it up with the hole, push it down, advance my follower. So now that I'm on my 5th hole, so once I line up with the hole and the follower, I use the walls of the follower there to basically line it up, come take the tweezers, push it down, advance the follower. So reassembly's something that probably is scary to a lot of newer pickers, but once you get to the blue belt, green and blue belt levels, you should be getting more and more familiar with how to assemble a lock, and it shouldn't scare you as much anymore. Just be cognizant of how you reassemble things so that they work correctly. Got our very last pin, so this will be super easy for you to see what I'm doing. Just like that. And now we have all of our drivers in. We can go ahead and put our key pins in. We could use the loading slot at the bottom, but I like to assemble any lock. Whenever I put a core into the lock, I like to assemble a lock with the key in so that all of the key pins are at the shear line. That way, there's less places for the drivers to fall in. I'm basically verifying, since these key pins are so small, what the correct orientation is to put them in. Getting the pointy side down. And these very small one cuts, it's definitely harder to tell. So like this one here, looks like pointy end is that end, so it's going there. So we got all 7 in there. Put the key in. Do be cognizant when you do that you're knocking those pins up, so go at a pace that you're not going to send them all flying. But now that they're all lined up, I don't have to worry about a driver falling down. And again, watch out for that spot. We do not want to end up with this thing in the wrong orientation, and I'm making sure that it's going to end up like this so that that notch that's cut out is for the face of it. So I'm just going to go ahead, slide this on, and right over, and there we go. Our core is now reassembled enough that we can take the key out if we're in the right spot. So I like to do that just because it locks it up for us as we put on our clip. So this clip has a little notch in the top, or for the top. So I make sure I put it on in the direction that lines up with that. I'll just push it on by hand. And now we have our core retention in place. So next trick for reassembling this bad boy. I'm actually going to put the shackle in first. So all you have to do there, apply tension on it against that spring. Put our little shackle retention pin in place, tighten it up, They do have Loctite on there from the factory. I just leave it. It does its job. Once it's tight, now we can let off and our shackle is redone. I never did dump that screw out, so I'm going to dump that out now for room. Next trick to reassembly of this, in my opinion, easiest way to get these ball bearings and the core lined up. First off, what I would do is, just because this plate can be a pain in the butt to get in, we're going to put the plate on the face of the lock and put our key in so that it's trapped like that. We're going to hold our lock body kind of horizontal like that, and we're going to get those ball bearings in the back. So I'm just dropping them in that hole in the very back of the lock there. There are obviously holes for the ball bearings to go to the little divots on the shackle. So what I do is I hold it horizontal and I push them into those holes, and then I'm trying to hold that position so that they don't rotate around. So now we come in here with the core. It needs to be in the open position, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it. And once you get it to the right spot, those ball bearings are hopefully going to move out of the way so that you can get this core reinserted. And if they don't, it means they probably, like I just had happen, fell back out of the hole. So this is probably the hardest part to get lined up, but it just takes a little bit of holding it correctly to get those ball bearings not to slide out. You could also theoretically relock the lock at this point, but you don't have an easy way to keep the ball bearings in place. So there we go. I think, nope, not quite actually. They did not quite stay. One of them keeps wanting to fly out, so I'm trying to do this in a way that makes it easier for you to see on camera, but I'm just going to get stubborn here and keep it truly level like I usually would. Still dropping that one out. So, like I said, painful portion of the reassembly of this guy. There's probably a smart way to do it that I just am not realizing, but sometimes I'm stubborn. Still not quite right. That one ball bearing keeps wanting to roll out of its spot. Did it yet again. There we go. Now that it's in place, get our plate in there, put our cap on, line up the little divots. Get our screw in there. I like to turn left just to make sure that it actually isn't getting cross-threaded, and then once I can feel that it actually is correct in the threading, start tightening it. There, make sure it's snug. Close her back up. And we have a functional Paclock again. So there you have it. That is the Paclock 90A-PRO picked, gutted, reassembled, including painfully getting the ball bearings back into the right spot. Hopefully that answers any questions you have in the process of this. If you have any more questions about this lock, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. I will answer them as soon as I get them and answer them to the best of my ability. Hopefully you enjoyed. I will see you guys next time.